Welcome to Southwest Yard and Garden. I'm Curtis Smith. Today we're visiting the garden of Roseanne Tufnell, who specializes in daylilies, but you have a lot of other plants here as well.
Yes, I certainly do. And this yard has been a labor of love for 22 years now, and it's still in a process of evolution.
How'd you turn such a steep, foreboding area into such a beautiful garden?
Well, we started with terracing to hold the land back, and then we planted all the trees for erosion control and did some land sculpting using rocks, and then I planted living ground covers down in here and around to hold the ground in place until the daylilies took hold. And once the daylilies have their roots out and are mature enough to hold the ground in place themselves pretty much, then I thin out the ground covers because they compete for nutrients, and they do attract snails, which is not necessarily positive on that.
Right.
But it does hold the land in place and cool the ground for the daylilies.
Okay, and what did you do to prepare the soil so the daylilies would do well here?
Well, our soil is primarily decomposed granite. I do have clay pockets. The lower levels here have some clay in it, but a lot of amendments, compost, peat moss, primarily, and some manure. You really need to amend it because the soil is so granular that the water runs through very quickly. So you need the peat moss to make it a little more acidic, but also to hold the water.
Okay, so you put them in, and then the clumps begin to multiply. People think of daylilies as something difficult. They look like they're something anyone can grow.
They really are. Their basic requirements are 4 to 6 hours of sun a day, just like a rose bush. And they need soil with good drainage. They don't like wet feet.
Right, and I see some of these clumps are getting fairly thick here, and others are a little bit more sparse.
This one's been in the ground probably about 5 years.
And so it's had time to multiply and grow. How often do you need to divide these?
In New Mexico, the fast-growing clumps probably every 4 to 5 or maybe 6 years. It really depends on how fast the individual cultivar multiplies. But you'll know it's time to divide it when your bloom starts to diminish because it's gotten so crowded that each individual fan is not getting enough nutrient.
I notice there's an awful lot of flower escapes coming up in this clump still, so it's doing okay still.
This one's still okay probably for another year to 2 years. And another negative of allowing them to stay too crowded is that snails and pill bugs and things that chew on the plants can hide down in there.
So there are good reasons. Even though the daylily will do well without being divided a lot, it's much better to divide it.
Yes.
And they're pretty tough. Can we go over here and look at some of the other things you've got?
Certainly.
Roseanne, this is a pretty blue flower right here.
Yes, Curtis. This is a cantonanche, or more commonly known as Cupid start. And it's a fairly dry, tolerant flower. It has a taproot, so plant it where you want it to grow. It has an interesting characteristic. It opens with the sun and closes when the sun is off of it.
Ah.
And the seed pods and the new buds look almost alike, so it's hard to tell what to cut, and it does self-sow readily.
Okay, so it's a good plant to have in the daylily garden, but you may have to worry about it a little bit.
Deadheading's good.
Okay, and I see the Shasta Daisies here.
And this is sort of my meadow area. I've got Vinca Major growing to cover the ground, and it also blooms early in the spring. Bowls mauve, the Shasta Daisies.
They're beautiful.
And perennial phlox. The butterflies, I get the monarch butterflies as soon as the phlox start opening. They just love it.
And I see you've got lavender over here.
And the lavender, the bumblebees certainly like the lavender, and it makes a nice kind of heathered backdrop for the other flowers. And I have Salvia gregii and Goblin gaillardia and iris.
And the roses.
And roses.
Can't forget the roses. They do well here. And they make a nice
they do.
plant to have with the daylilies, don't they?
Yes, you can co-plant very nicely. The only thing you have to realize that the roots on the rose need space, and they will win out over the daylily if you don't kind of give them their own space, and make sure you deep water the roses.
Okay, well there's lots of things here, but this is really a daylily garden, so that's what we ought to look at next.